What's up YouTube, my name is Max the Tracks, and today I have for you episode 4 of PUFFCAPS to Masters, the series where I take PUFFCAPS to Masters. We started Plat 4 about a couple of days ago, and at this point we are in Diamond 2. The win rate has gone pretty well. At this point we're at like about a 75% win rate over about 50 games. So I hope you enjoy. I'm the PUFFCAP master. That does give me the highest win rate across any server using the deck Teemo Caitlyn, so I'm quite proud of myself, and I hope y'all enjoy watching this episode where we're currently in Diamond 2 and trying to hit Masters. You see there, I decided to withhold the Teemo on turn 1. They parlay my face. I'm like, beautiful. I still withholding Teemo. Plunder is historically one of the toughest matchups for PUFFCAPS, just because we don't have a great way to deal with those big overwhelmed bodies. But we decided to send in our Conchologist on 2 there. They don't block it, so I'm like, nice, got a little bit of damage in. We still have a blocker, and we've only we've managed to evade their we've managed to evade the good parts of their level up, where they hit the parlays or they hit the make it rains, and they go for another parlay there. But I have a stress defense, and I think that's very worth it to use in combination with my Victor's Death Ray to force out the warning shot. I'm like, cool, that works fine. I wish they wouldn't have had a proc at all, but if they have to use a warning shot, that's not the end of the world. And here you see I slammed the Chum Bomb die top deck on 4. I'm feeling decent about this game. They do make it rain, which is pretty good for them. But at this point, I'm assuming they don't have any more parlay or make it rain-esque effects. So they will block with a black market merchant. I'm like, that's a bit scary. But then they do the silliest play I've ever seen, which is playing my own Ava onto their board. So I'm like, cool, I'll probably just thermo beam that. I definitely did not expect that from the Plunder player, but it is quite funny. And they do a second make it rain. So at this point, they only have 2 cards in their hand, and I'm like, that's probably fine. Like, I feel okay about this game, okay enough. I do just decide to pass because I try to force them to have their Plunder proc, and they end up dropping a Grifter, which will give them a warning shot to activate their units with. And I'm very scared at this moment because all I have is Ava Achiever and not that many PUFFCAPS in my deck. So they slam a Sejuani onto the board, giving my Ava vulnerable, but thankfully I top deck a Thermo Beam to take that out. And they do end up dragging my Ava, which honestly is not a big deal. Like I said, they've used 2 Make It Rain and 2 Parlay at this point, so I'm chilling. They hit a Teemo there. They hit 2 PUFFCAPS there, and I'm able to Mushroom Cloud to level Teemo, so that feels pretty good. They didn't drop another champion, which feels great. And at this point, even if they do have a Gangplank, I can just Thermo Beam it because I top decked yet another one, so that's super fortunate as well. But instead they Riptide Sermon here, and I'm like, okay, it's probably fine to Insider Knowledge, just because I really need to hit the PUFFCAPS, and they have 14 in their deck at this point. I hit 2, and I'm like, alright, that's not great, because on average we were supposed to do 8 damage with that Insider Knowledge, but instead they do another Mirai Warden, and we thankfully see them get the Tentacle Spawner, which doesn't actually do much for them, thankfully. But there is the GP I was very scared of, and I'm gonna have to figure out how I can survive this game at this point. So I see they're doing 5 damage with GP. I see I have a removal spell. I see I have Karina. That could be a good blocker on GP. I could do a Chump Bump, which could be a decent blocker on GP. I have the Death Ray. I'm going to take a while to try to figure out this math because I really don't want to lose. But the bright side of the situation is that they didn't get the barrel, and I know that they don't have many more damage spells. So I actually decided to cheese and hit a Chump Bump, and I decided that the way I win this game is by developing my Peddler after they attack here and using Karina to use the final damage. So I end up blocking both of those units and doing that, and I survived with 3 health, which surprised me. I thought I was going to be a little lower, so I'm actually kind of okay, assuming they haven't stolen any more spells that will finish me off. So you see there I hover the PUFFCAP Peddler, and I'm like, cool, this feels good, I'm actually alive, which is way more than I expected. I dropped the Peddler, and I should definitely just slam the PUFFCAPS now, because the point of doing these now, well, okay, I actually decided to kill GP, but I think I should have used the PUFFCAPS now, because killing GP doesn't actually do anything for me. Yeah, I misplayed that a little bit. I should have just maximized the chance that they draw puffcaps, but they draw 3 there anyways, and I'm able to volatile bloom. At this point, I say GG because they have like 56 puffcaps in deck, so one of us is gonna win the game on the next turn, and I think it's me. And you see, I hit 16 there, so I was like, Jesus, that's beautiful. So really good win there. Ended up not even needing to play as scared as I was, but yeah, here we're gonna see another game where I'm Diamond 2 against a very, very weird Karma Akshan deck. If you're playing puffcaps and you play against Karma, you're not actually legally allowed to lose the game, because if you do, you get your puffcap card revoked. So definitely make sure that you never lose to Karma when you're playing puffcaps, because that's just, you know, a sin. So here I see a Tellstones and I'm like, cool, maybe the Aftershock will be useful for killing the Akshan landmark, and I end up swinging with Conchologist, which allows them to do a combat trick to kill it, and I Mystic Shot the Akshan there, which is fine. I'm still not really sure if this is like some weird infinite deck or what I'm facing up against, but here you see I swing in with Teemo because I don't really have much better to do. I can't level him yet, and at this point I'm trying to figure out what is my best play here. I'm definitely considering using the Aftershock to take out the landmark, because I'm like, that could really kneecap them if they don't have a lot of good cards in their hand, which based on dropping the Dragonling, it doesn't really seem like they do. So I decided to say screw it and just try to kind of take out their form of draw. So that worked out pretty decently. They weren't able to level it, which is good for me because that would have been backbreaking. They just open attack with those and I pass, and then they drop Karma and I'm like, that's awkward. So I might Teemo's Mushroom Cloud since that would level Teemo, I believe. I could also Insider Knowledge, which seems fine, but I'd probably rather save for when I have Ava active along with Karina. Like, I really want to save that Insider Knowledge until the puffcaps are dealing double damage. So I decided I'll just slow roll this turn, and there's really nothing better for me to do. I could have Mystic Shot Face, and that was definitely a reasonable play, but at the same time, like, Mystic Shotting Face just feels so bad at that point of the game because I might need it elsewhere. And we're just struggling. They deep med, which draws them 1 puffcap, which is nice. And I just drop an Ava Achiever because I'm like, they don't have a good way to remove these Avas, so why not? They do have a Dragonling right there, which is a bit annoying. But you see I draw a Chumpwump, which is really nice. And I'm really not worried about the threat that they might, you know, burn me down with aggro attackers. So I just accept that damage. They Will of Ionia, one of my Avas there, and I'm like, alright, that's fine. I definitely think it's just reasonable to go for an open attack with Teemo. At this point, they draw 2 puffcaps, and I'm like, cool, seems decent. They have 24 in their deck, so that's fine. I decided to just go for it, I believe, because like forcing them to have a second concussive palm is really good. And right now their hand is just filled with kind of bad Karma cards, but they do a very heads up play by using that lurk spell. They make sure that they don't draw any puffcaps, but they kind of make a really dumb play at the same time by using the Cloud Drinker to draw a spell which could kill them. And then you see they drop the what is that card called, the Hatchling, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I decided Insider Knowledge with both of my Avas down, so they do have premature health pot to try to survive this, but survive is not something they're gonna do as they take 12 puffcaps right there. And a wonderful conclusion. The double Ava plays are always so silly because you're like, you never know where you're gonna end up with those, and I believe this is the game here that makes or breaks whether or not I hit Diamond. And very fortunately we hit a Anivia deck, Diamond 1. So again, Anivia is one of those control decks that is waiting to hit turn 10, so it's easily like, I would argue that Anivia and Karma are the easiest champions in the world to play against. Like, I would say these are like 80 to 70% win rates for me. I very rarely lose to these, especially when I draw something like triple peddler, which is just juicy as hell, you know, amazing. Like, what are you gonna do to this board? And they just swing with the Avarice and Sentry, and the good thing about the Sentry is that I actually want that to stay on the board as long as possible. I'll continue to let it hit me until I fill their deck with puffcaps, and then that's an extra draw they have to do. But unfortunately they avalanche there, so they damage both my peddlers, and I decide I might do a Pokey Stick here. I probably should wait until they Vile Feast, but they do not end up Vile Feasting anyways, and they actually leave both of my peddlers up, so I'm like, what the hell? I end up slamming a third one because why not? And that prompts them to Withering Whale, which allows me to do 1 Mystic Shot, and then we can just drop Teemo and probably get in with him. So I feel very good about where this game is. It's turn 5, and I already have them up to 30 Puffcaps in their deck, along with 5 damage on board. So I feel pretty chill. You know, we have the Ava coming down, we have removal, we have an Aloof Travelers for their Ruination or Harrowing or whatever. You do see they have an Anivia there, and I just decided to Thermo Beam it. That way I don't have either my Peddler or my Teemo damaged, and I can just repeat that swing and do another 5 damage and get more Puffcaps into their deck, lest they, you know, freeze me. So, and if they freeze me on this turn, it allows me to safely get down my Ava Achiever, which is really broken. So they do the Anivia's Harsh Winds, and I'm like, cool, no big deal. I accept that. Just say resolve max. I kind of forgot like what's happening. I'm like, oh yeah, I have to hit resolve. And at this point, I'm like, chump bumps look pretty good, and especially if they're gonna Blighted Ravine here, I'm definitely down to just peddle more Puffcaps, and that gets them all the way up to, what is it, 40 something in their deck at this point. And I keep my Chump Wump alive, and you see I draw 2nd one, but now it definitely feels like the right time for me to do my Ava. And you see they take a damage getting another Anivia, which is really nice for me. I can very safely drop Ava here and just chill. I could block with this Chump Wump, but I'm like, there's really no point. Like, what does it do for me? I decided just Conchologist to try to get more spells, and I like the Jury Rig because I can go wide with Jury Rig here and do an extra damage if I want to swing. And I look at how beautiful that Anivia is. Like, the Harsh Winds even got different and pixelated, which I think is so sick. But I mean, that's kind of besides the point. They take another 2 on that, and I top that Karina, which I'm pretty sure is game at this point. They do a Catalyst of Aeons, which levels their Anivia, so we get to see that level, which is pretty sick. But I hit the Shen emote because at this point they have a ton of Puffcaps in their deck. They Vile Feast my Chump Wump, and I'm like, that's fine. And we end up hitting 18 on them. So yeah, that is kind of why we play the Ava Karina combo, because it's really broken. So yeah, and then we have a game against wait, what is this one we just watched? Oh no. Alright, I'm gonna skip ahead because I think this is a loss and it's not too interesting. Ezreal Kennen is just higher power level than us, honestly, so that's kind of all it comes down to. I think I'll skip ahead to this game because I think we won this one, and then this should be the one that determines. No wait, I'm sorry guys, one more skip. I'm gonna lose to that as well. Okay. I think these 2 should be the last 2 we watch. Sorry about that, guys. I was a little disorganized. So yeah, you can see this player's Diamond 1, and it's another run back on the Nami, which is a lot more interesting of a game because I actually get something going. I won against like some rogue random decks that didn't do anything, so I was just skipping the uninteresting games there. But if y'all want to see the results of those, you can go to my Runeterra AR, which is in the link in the bio if you want to see how those games went. So you can see, you know, just roping. Some people say I should get an editor, or I mean editing software, but I don't know any editing software. So if you want to suggest some free editing software to me in the comments below, if you make YouTube videos or content of any sort that I might be able to, because I literally just record these on OBS and then upload them directly to YouTube. So I know this content can get a little rough sometimes, but I appreciate y'all watching all the way to episode 4. If you've been keeping up with the series, it does mean a lot to me. Yeah, so we swing in, getting aggressive. Like I said last episode, we want to be very hard on TF Nami to make sure we're pushing as much as possible. And oh, this is literally a game where our opponent just disconnects. Never mind. Wait, Max has no idea what he's doing. And then I'm Diamond 1. Okay, so I'll just watch the game. That's the first game in Diamond 1, and then we will call it a wrap. So yeah, one more Plunder game. You know, as y'all know, Plunder takes up like 8% of the meta, so we're playing it like about 1 in 10 matches. So that kind of checks out with how many games we played in between with all the ones we skipped. But the point of this episode is that we hit Diamond 1. I apologize, it was in such an anticlimactic way, but sometimes when I'm playing during the day, it's like people have their lunch break, so they just kind of leave games occasionally. That's my theory, at least, is either that they're playing at school or they're playing at work and their lunch break ends. So sometimes we get those games that are kind of non-games where people just realize they don't have enough time to finish them and end up conceding. But that's why instead of playing at work, you should watch me on stream, because then you don't have to inter LP and you get to get that juicy Runeterra content that you crave. So yeah, if Plunder's passing, we're passing because we're the control deck and we want to be in the late game a lot more than they do, especially if they don't have leveled champions. Like, Gangplank is not threatening if he doesn't have his barrel every turn and the level up effect. So it's like, we're just gonna pass until they do something. And they do double black market merchant. I was kind of scared that my peddler was gonna get Riptide Sermon, but instead they do a make it rain on Teemo. So I have a really good stress defense play where I can just protect Teemo 100%, and then it plays around the second make it rain, and it makes sure that I get the leveled Teemo in here. So I burned my other two Teemos, a very, very weird hand in my first game in Diamond 1. But yeah, we end up swinging him, doubling our puff caps, so it's 44 puff caps by turn 6. A really good start, which is kind of the way a lot of my games have been going. And it actually ends up being good that I did play around the double make it rain, because they ended up having 2, so they just send one there to try to take me out. I decide to hold the proximity puff cap until they do something more decisive, and there's a parlay that I cannot answer, so I'm just like, all right, fair enough. I drop Conchologist to have a blocker, and I see a Pokestick, which is probably my best bet. And the second parlay, I'm like, god damn. But I do decide to just use a entrapment that I got off a previous spell, and that will put 12 puff caps into their deck, which is really nice. And they have a Sejuani, so at this point I'm like, this is getting real sketchy. They do have 55 puff caps in the deck, but they also are pushing a ton of damage. So I feel like if I don't beat them within the next like kind of 2 turn frame time window, I'm in a lot of trouble. So you see there, I take out one of their merchants just to give myself a chance to survive on the next swing. Considering I don't have any units to block with, I'm kind of stressed out, but whenever I'm stressed, I draw stress defense. So we end up insider knowledging, try to draw them into some puff caps. They draw 4 there, and I'm like, all right, there's a chance I survive here. Obviously, I have the thermo beam that Dreadway, because if they Dreadway here, I just auto lose. But thankfully, they got 2 on their Gangplank, so that's something nice. And then they draw another 4, and I'm like, hold up. We could definitely survive, especially if we just stress defense. Like, all they did was open attack, where they definitely should have developed Gangplank. So I'm feeling super good about this game at this point. I still have 6 health, which is way more than I expected to have by the end of this turn. And the Yordle Grifter comes down, which is mildly scary because I could steal like a Mystic Shot or something of that nature. But I decided to Mystic Shot their face, as I just believe they'll draw a puff cap on the open and I should win the game. You see there, I do a silly TF emote because I'm like, I'm good. I pretty much won this one. And yeah, that will conclude this episode of PuffCaps to Masters. We went from Diamond 2 to Diamond 1 on episode 4, and this was over a 2-day period live on my stream. So yeah, I appreciate everybody so much for watching. Yeah, I mean, there's only so much PuffCaps you can take in one trip, but I hope you enjoyed this journey as we're approaching Masters. We're currently Diamond 1, as you can see. This is where things get interesting, so stay tuned, you know. I feel like Diamond 1 is where shit gets real, because it's those last 5 games is all you need, and we're at 22 LP by the end of this game, so it's like, this is where things get real, gamers. So watch out for the next episode. I believe this one, I'm recording it on Tuesday, but it should be dropping on Thursday, and then I should have the last episode for you by Friday. So I appreciate everybody for hanging out, and yeah. How you doing? You doing good? You had some snacks? I hope you didn't, you know, stay hydrated, gamers. You can go. You're good to go. Click a video if you want to watch more, but you should be good.